Good evening, everybody. I hope everybody's doing well. And I said I'd try and talk a little bit about uh, a couple of questions from Chital and Dominic. Remember, in these questions, these are deep, interactive questions that are mm, that can be come at. You can come at them from different angles, many different angles. So this is just one, and it's not written in stone. And you need to read a little bit if you're really sincere about these particular things. You should read a little bit and try to understand and be involved. Be willing to be involved with understanding yourself. Period. Um, and be kind, respectful about the self that is part of what is meaningful to you, and I can't say be respectful often enough or kind. Anyway, here we go. We'll try a little bit. And let's see. Be keeping well there. How does trauma in this life or from our ancestral lineage, such as sexual, physical, emotional, psychological, etc., abuse, affect energy flow? Oh boy. And I'll read the questions first so you can hear them. Does this trauma as an energy sit in our DNA like a blockage? And so, how do we clear it? Asking for transmutation and healing, is that enough? Sorry for is it not, if it is not cleared, does it affect our children? Sorry for all the questions, personal journey as well. Vulnerable, and she's involved with vulnerable people. And this is from Chital in London, England. Well, from this one point of view, these abuses are like a callus or a bruise and on a physical form, but they're on an energetic form. So you have pain and vulnerability attached to these things, and they hurt. Um, and this hurt is viable, it's real. And then we not only protect the bruise, but we protect our hurting as well, which sounds strange, but it's not strange at all. It's part of what we're all involved with. I don't think that anyone in life through their younger years has not been bruised relative to how they see the world. If you heard that one, and also bruised in relationship to how the world sees us. So I tried to write a little bit of stuff down here. It's just stuff, and that maybe I can do a little bit of that first, and maybe uh, broaden it out just a wee little bit. Um, First of all, in each and every one of our relationships that we have with ourselves, in other words, I'm talking about our personalities, we do our honest level best at every stage in our development, like, one age one, age two, age three, age five, age four, four, six, all the way up. Each and every moment of our life, we strangely have responses to our world um, in various different ways relative to the nature of our 4-year-old or 5-year-old or 10-year-old or 15-year-old or whatever. Um, Sometimes these responses are always valuable because no matter what they look like, because they're protecting something. and they're protecting us against often hurting. And sometimes there's stronger things that we need to protect ourselves from. And this, unfortunately, these things come out of the blue and touch us at these ages, and they are effectively a part of us. Now, when I say they're a part of us, you could look at that as a negative, and often they feel that way, but sometimes they're a part of us, and we look at them and can, let's say, have them affect us in a constructive way. In other words, we don't ever want to be involved with that hurt like that again. And then slowly it can become not so constructive by anticipating that hurt is always with us or always will be there relative to others, whoever the others are, and any others can be there. This is very, very, very difficult to deal with. Add on top of that, there are different levels of sensitivity that we have in our relationship with life. And this is neither good or bad, right or wrong. We are more sensitive sometimes, some of us, and it touches us a little deeper or a little stronger. Therefore, we need to protect a little bit more ourselves from hurting again. This is very, very uncomfortable. There are some books, and anyone interested in those books, I will pass on a book on sensitivity that Mary Forrester brought to my attention. And I have not read it yet, but I trust Mary's engagement with this kind of reading, and I would be glad to pass on the name of that book and the author, and any others that happen to come to mind around this topic. I think Jean Irving sent me a title and something that helped in this, and an author that helped. And if you're interested, let us know, and we'll be sure you get something that you can read. And there's all different angles on these topics. Chital and whoever else wants to read about this stuff. Dominic may want to read something about it too. So really, basically, this engagement with this bruising that we have is kind of makes us ultra sensitive, and with respect to how we assess things in daily life, and we see this, we can attempt to see this sensitivity more gently, but it's extremely sometimes very difficult to do so because we're trying to be protective under those circumstances, self-protective. This is natural. This is not anything that is negative, even though it may feel like that. Now, the question was, may I have some guidance in these questions? How does trauma in this life or from ancestral lineage, such as sexual, physical, emotional, psychological abuse, affect the energy flow? Well, it creates a trauma, as many have talked about. And there are some books that might be interesting to some of you if you're interested in that area as well. Just let us know, and we'll send out one or two that you might attempt to look at. Remember, there are many, many books on this in this area that might be helpful. Fear and trauma are very strong emotions and the the fright response that we have in there can be so bad that we go into a state that is held like an empty state. We can't do anything in it. It was just completely, we're immobilized. And that is a bruise as well. And various kinds of bruising, emotionally, physically, if you've been physically abused. Emotional is one of the biggest traumas, and intellectual bruising can also happen. Can be part of what we pass from one generation to another. Yes, it's true. We can. Now, here's an interesting thing. I know if you read some material on epigenetics, that you can emotionally, literally pass these things on to a new child, perhaps. But here's one thing that I think might be helpful. I don't know. Usually when we're passing things on, we don't know we're passing anything on. And this is important to remember. We don't set out to do that. But we have natural responses, reactions to things in our daily interaction that little folk can be, kids can be walking around watching us, not knowing what they're seeing, and end up mimicking things of that nature, fear nature, anxiety nature, various ways of engaging with life, and start acting that way, because if an adult is acting that way, then it must be true that little kids should act that way too, because adults are acting that way. They're sponges, they take in everything. Now, I'm not talking about energy yet either. It is also possible that when you have a reaction internally, not from your perspective, doing anything externally, that you can they pick up that energetic sensitivity, and in a kind of a way, they become sensitive because the fear is so great in the adult, or the nervousness is great, or the anxiety is great in the adult, and it passes on that way. Passes on through mimicry. And in fact, it's a real dilemma, because we don't necessarily pay any attention to the idea that we are energy beings, and we are transmitting energetically through the solar plexus, through the gonad center, the root center, through the chest, through the throat, through the brow, through the crown, whatever which way we can. And we are, I was going to say filtering. It's perhaps the wrong word, but we are engaging with and trying to align with a method of how one should engage oneself with the world. And these are little kids, and they're looking at all of this stuff. And most of the time, an adult doesn't know they're doing that, because most of the time an adult is passing on, in theory, information that it believes might help the little kid, even if it's delusional, not real, strange context. Now then, no one tells the little kid, even when they're an adult, that this may not be helpful, because by adulthood, we're all protecting our past experiences in a subtle manner that relates to making sense of things as an adult does, attempts to make things make sense to themselves. And all you're trying to do is find a way to engage with life on a daily basis. So this is not rocket science, but it's not negative. It's a methodology Yes, of course, if your relationship with that seems a little negative to other people, then they may express it to you. But it doesn't make them perfectly able to assess either. It just doesn't, because they're working through their stuff, one could say. Well, if you look at it from an energy point of view, the transmission is 24/7. The engagement with life is 24/7. If you look at it from a physical point of view, engagement with life is 24/7. Emotional engagement with life is 24/7. Whether you think you're emoting or not, you still are. Intellectually oriented or intellectual orientations are mixed all inside of that same engagement, mixing with emotion, mixing with physical responses, physical reflexes, habitual responses that you've learned when you're young. And you try to make sense of this, and you do the best you possibly can. Some people reach out and go to therapy for these things. These are the courageous ones. These are the ones that have the courage to engage with self and slowly, and I mean slowly, move in a direction that can broaden out how they look at things so that they can be more pensive every now and then, not all the time. There's no such thing as you're marked 24 hours a day. That's just a kind of a thing that people do because they're protecting themselves. That's shocking. No, it's reality. It's what happens. But it doesn't mean their mark is a reality. It means that that's where the way they see things in a current situation relative to them. And they are also trying to understand them. If a person tells you they understand themselves perfectly well, be kind and respectful, because it's not real. We are a deeply engaging being of consciousness, which includes other lives. Thankfully, I think we don't always include other lives because it's hard enough just to engage with and understand this one and make some sense of it, and then allow ourselves to be okay with different adaptations. We can adapt slightly differently than we've already adapted to. Every system that we are, every personality that's constructed itself, is an adaptation of some sort. We need to be okay with understanding that. It takes a lot of pressure off having to be a certain way dictated by whatever it would be: culture, family background, uh, your personality's vision of a perfect person. There's no perfect person. And I can look you right in the eye and say that because I know there's reality in that statement. And being kind and respectful to others is vital in this because it helps you to understand you. Also helps you to understand others and the dilemmas that they face under these bruising reflexes that have occurred in relationship to a response to life that has been difficult. We have far too, my opinion, this may not be true, but you think about it, far too many ideas around idealism in relationship to a personality. Because the reality of it is that everyone who lives on these planes live on these planes, emotionally, physically, mentally. And these planes affect us automatically, not only in relationship to one-on-one engagements with others, but our engagement with how we see the world and how every being on the planet is in relationship to how it affects us. This is a little harder to understand or make sense of, perhaps. And I would understand if anybody didn't make sense of that. But nonetheless, how we function in the world is part of how the world functions. And how all of those beings in the world function affects us. In some manner, you could say, well, I've never been like those folks over there. They're at war all the time. But you are a grumble bunny from time to time. Speaking for myself, of course. And when you are a grumble bunny, no offense to bunnies, then catching yourself helps you to understand that that's part of the stuff that you're made of, and also part of a place where you can attempt to adapt. If you adapt too well, be careful. Others will want you to adapt less, and they will try to instigate to get you to be a grumble bunny too. Hopefully you laughed a little bit at that one, but it's not very funny because it does happen. People are constantly engaging with other people in ways that allows them to be less than kind. And I think, in a way, that's disrespectful. But they don't see it that way. They see that as valuable and important. Most of that kind of thing is unconscious. People don't know they're doing it. In the odd case, it is conscious. And they have, out of that, those that are conscious of it, a sense of feeling good about themselves for having stimulated you in a not so good way. This is what happens on these planes. And there are those who would want you to be stimulated in a very wonderfully calm and gentle and respectful manner as well. There's all kinds of engagements on these planes in our world with each other. So many of these cause bruises, physically, emotionally, mentally. And they affect us because they cause us pain, hurt, better word, I think, of various degrees. And that has an effect on how, yes, according to some, our DNA is involved in more than just, the spiral, double helix. You know a little bit about the DNA, then reread it, all 15 or 20 books that you read about it, and then read epigenetics 20 years ago, 10 years ago, and then read it now. They're adding more and more to it because they're understanding more and more and more. And then begin to realize there's no fault in how you engage with your kids when you're bringing them up. It's a pity they can't be brought up every 10 years because you grow every 10 years. You understand things slightly differently. Figure it out. See if that's possible. Or 20 if that's what it is for you. And you shift and change how you see the world. There should be a get-together in a coffee shop. Or, I don't know, whatever they drink at that time. And you sit down and you say, okay, this is I've been your parent for 30 years. Okay, now here, this is what I found out. And I've changed over the last 10 years. And we've had 3 meetings: when you were 10, when you were 20, when you were 30. And now this is how I am now, and this is what I think the world is. And then when you're 40, you do it all over again, and you have another coffee or tea, or if you can lift the cup, depending how old you are then, and do the same thing when you're 50. And then that person renews, gets back to where they were 10 or 15 or 20, and says, let me think like I did then. You see how ridiculous this is. And let me see if that makes a difference in terms of how I saw you many years ago. So I can try to filter some of these things out and get rid of some of the hurts where you thought you were really helping me and you were really not doing that. You were hurting me. And then maybe see if we could let those go. If we were the kid involved, you would have adaptation problems. You would remember the hurts better than you could remember the times every 10 years when your poor parents said, I'm so sorry, I had it a little off at that time, but now I have it really, really solid, and this is more right until the next 10 years. Chital, there is no possible way that a person can be perfectly engaging with a child. You will do your ever living best because that's the kind of a person you are. And so will others at the time of their bringing up a child. They can only do what's best at that time, and they will do that. Yes, the child will see you or see others that you may be talking about in a manner that relates to a certain moment. Perhaps later, if they're able to adapt, rather than carrying that hurt callus or bruise along with them, which, by the way, attends to and needs protecting so it can remain the same, because it is engrossed, infiltrated with hurt. So you protect your hurts as well as you protect your joys. Sometimes joy's not that much, more hurts, because we become a little resentful that we were hurting so much. And we carry that with us all the way along. And this is, in honesty, I hate to say these words, but kind of sad. It makes us feel helpless, and we're not. But it makes us feel like we were the age that these bruises occurred. And one of the things that we can do with that, because you did mention that we can ask for transmutation and healing, but we can attempt to be more and more sincere about it. I know I brought this up, but there was a guy named Frank Bettcher many, many years ago who tried to get people like myself who were more shy to engage with becoming helpful to themselves, as opposed to being afraid of going out and dealing with other people. He would say, get in front of a mirror and talk literally to you and act as if you were not shy. So you could remember what that felt like. And you had to practice that for a while. And it was very helpful, because suddenly you began to think only of that practice as opposed to the shyness. Same is helpful here. Becoming sincere in trying to help another with the same sincerity that you would ask for if you were asking for help for yourself. And then don't judge what you feel inside. Recognize what you feel inside. And if you're not doing it perfectly, and you won't, do it again. Gently. Try to gentle down your frustration the best you can. When you get that gentling down, you will feel a response similar to saying, no, I don't want to do that, because that means I'm giving them a free ride. And that's the protection you have against those bruises. You want to keep them. You want to make sure they're fresh. You want to re-speak them again so that they're maintained, and your anger or frustration is maintained. It becomes a tremendous habit. And that habit is difficult to let go of. Same is true for all of us. And we all have these things, obviously. Maybe you don't. And to be really spiritual, you're not supposed to admit something. To be honest, admit it to you. Honesty is an important thing in relationship to growth. The honesty that you have is being honest to you, not so the world can hear it. That's showmanship, or whatever else you want to call it. But that reasserts things. If you are honest with you, then do the best you can to slowly submit softer. And then you get to the point where you can't do it anymore. And you say, you better give me a hand with this, because this is as much as I can do. I need lots of help with this one. I don't want my bruise to maintain its full intensity, because it affects my life, makes me angry, makes me frustrated, makes me aggressive, because I start seeing everything through the eyes of that bruise. So everything becomes a bruise. That is not a negation of the personality. That's an occurrence of an engagement that has occurred in life. The personality is learning how to soften it down, because it's trained to remind itself of its occurrence by the reoccurrence of something similar. Every time you react, you reoccur, you make that bruise hurt. And this is very difficult. So anyone that has the courage to attempt to deal with these things is very high marks in my world of thinking. And that can be for all of us. No offense to anybody out there. What I'm speaking about can be in relationship to my life as well as anybody else's. I live on the planet Earth. I've met thousands of people. Oh, you might say, well, it's because I'm older. And I am, but I'm not that old. I'm old enough that I've met so many people in my life in terms of employment, in terms of just plain engaging with people over the years. Don't be afraid of you. Understand you and care for you. You're worth the caring. I don't care who you are. If that higher state loving gives us the intensity and energy to engage even with our hurts in a protective manner, that loving is unbelievably profound. We also have the capacity to love. I've often noticed many people who have been hurt a lot and have trouble with their bruises have the great ability to love. And to me, this is profound. And they're more sensitive often. And it does hurt them to be sensitive. But their sensitization is involved with being hurt and being trained to think that that hurt is an aspect of loving because it comes from their caregivers. And all caregivers should be expressing themselves in terms of loving in the way they think loving is. That's the last part. That's a tough statement. So, how one passes on love is related to how they received love. And many people who have had difficult backgrounds have done their best at every instant to pass on help to their children, as many that you've met have. So soften everything down the best you possibly can, even if it goes like in a small increment. It's a gain. It's a value. And it will affect you. Unfortunately, the effects are subtle, but really makes you more sensitive because you're endangering a coarser way of holding a position through caring. Care enough for yourself. You're worth it. Now remember, this is not only in relationship to Chatel's question. This is talking to a number of people, and so you can't say, oh, poor Chatel. It's not about only Chatel. It's about our relationships with others and ourselves. And ourselves are important. Every individual is important. If you remember that, you've just turned a key towards compassion and a deeper understanding of an individual. Not very nice to say this out loud. Will help you understand that individual and how difficult their engagement with life is for them, and they will not know that you know. But they'll think that you will, their thoughts will be relative to yours. They will think they know how you're thinking, and they don't. But their belief will make them think, will assert that their rightness is there, and it isn't. This is very difficult. Living in bruises all the time. But trying to slowly soften them down so that they're not as acutely sensitive can allow you to use your sensitivity to perceive that level of love deeper down inside us all and build a bigger understanding or compassion for others as well. And this one's important as yourself. It's very key, very important. How does it affect your children? Well, I think I talked a little bit about that. So, but the idea of totally clearing out all of this stuff, it's a theory. Understand that everyone will attempt to engage better than they could before, because that's what they're trying to do. So they can perceive not only those responses, but reach down inside themselves so they can feel that flow of energy moving in them, literally. Otherwise, the intensity is too strong because it's demanding all our attention. Eventually, you can have some attention on some of that other stuff, some of that bruising stuff, and smile a bit and say, wow, well, it's still with me, but not as quite as bad as it was before. Small increments are the key to helping. And doing your best to soften it down a little bit, because that will help you in relationship to how others engage with you. Take some little time to get used to things. Other people, it will take time for them to get used to them. All of us, it takes time to get used to understanding, recognizing, softening down, trying to be okay, gentler, more respectful of ourselves and others. If, for example, if your children are very young, you can be a little bit open with them, but not much. Be kindly and engaging with them. They're going to make all kinds of mistakes. You have, and you will again. So you're always learning. They're always learning. They're much more absorbent in their relationship with learning, at least to some degree, because of the fact that they're still absorbing that energy flow, while they don't know they're absorbing that, but they're taking in how you respond internally and externally and trying to make sense of it. And some will make reasonable sense of it, but they'll do that on the physical plane, like conversation. And so sometimes you can be honest in a kind way with them. In other words, I'm hurting a little bit today. I was just thinking of some old times, but I think I'm okay. Little tiny things. Oh, okay, Mom. Okay, Dad. At least there's a piece of honesty there that they can relate to, because they know you're responding, even though they've made sense of it in a very surface way, yet they're still aware of it. You just watch. Tones of voices, they'll listen to those like crazy. It's because they're used to doing that in the womb. Tones, boom, 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 boom. Those tones, very instructive of the emotional system. Amazing. So what I said was, try to be positive or constructive. Your version of it, you got to go with your version of it, because you're training you. You're trying to help you. And try to break the seal and smile a bit, just a bit. to change the way a child sees. Just smile at it. We're all too serious. So be constructive the best you can. Take the high road in things, but also, sometimes things aren't very friendly. So don't keep that from your child. Sometimes things aren't friendly, and sometimes they really are. There's two of them, not just one, because they're going to run into it as an adult, and they'll run into people that are uncomfortable being around because they do whatever they do, and they're just trying to do that, trying to survive. So I'm not sure, but I think I've covered most of what I was hoping to do. Yes, I think the transmutation and healing is good. I think redirecting is good. I think doing the pump is good. Trying to get you out of one position internally. Solar plexus is profoundly strong, and it needs to be, because the stabilizing system of emotion and your will and your territorial responses will always be listened to you by you. Always. So these systems, these sensory perceptive systems, will always be at work. So you can learn how to soften them down a little bit. And you can do that by using those banana skins. Take 10 banana skins at the solar plexus and close them down. Go in a circle, like start at the bottom. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Around in a circle. With your hands, turn them on and close them up when you're getting upset, when upsetness is really hard on your belly. Try to do that. And you'll, with your sensitivity, you try to be aware of what's going on in you while you're doing that. And keep talking to yourself and say, easy does it. Easy. And then ask for help. Give me a hand with it. I need the help. The idea of asking for help by some internally is thought of as nonsense. But the elephant in the room, it isn't nonsense. Your experience, if you attempt it, will show you that it isn't nonsense. You'll notice suddenly, wow, whatever it was is gone because you're getting some help. Take that as help and try and soften down your reflex to these things. Make sure you notice it. Tell yourself, I just got help. When you speak out loud to you, you listen. It's what you do. The problem is when you speak out loud to another with coarseness, you listen and you value what you've done. So you train you to do the same thing. Again, it's how it works with us. So learn how to say easy, easy. It's okay. You're all right. Sometimes when you're really intense, it's hard to take in. But it's worth it. Keep doing it. Chantel, I may or may not have answered any of your questions, but I hope you're okay with that. It's also, there was a question about something about addictions from Dominic Clark. Can you say something about addictions from your perspective? Dominic, I'll say a couple of things. This is by no means at all the final word on this very difficult subject. You should read something on this subject to become, and I know you've probably done that already, but nonetheless, continue to do so. It would be probably helpful. The thing, I'll make it sound a little strange at first. Addictions are really weird. Yet, in a kind of a way, they're very, very much involved with every person who lives. Now, we don't call everything addictions. We call them habits. We call them, this is what I do, and this is, for me, this is very valuable to me, and this is very constructive. So that's very constructive, yes. Other things might not be constructive to the physical body, to the emotions, to how you think your way through things. And all of us have difficulties in these things. We've just come through quite a while, and we're still involved with a pandemic. We look at a lot of the things we used to do, and sometimes we look at things that we've done. We've increased our expression of, or our habit, and try to figure out what is constructive about these things. Some people like to go shopping. Some people like to go swimming. Some people like to go walking. Some people like to have a drink. Some people enjoy having sexual engagements. Other people talk all the time. Other people don't talk hardly ever. These penetrating habitual responses or actions in our life form habits and styles. And also, some of them are very constructive. Some of them not so much. Hurt our bodies, hurt our ability to think, hurt our ability to engage emotionally. But these things are all sometimes things that we do to help us to handle hurts, again, that we have lived in and lived through and are a part of. Excuse me, we have something that just happened here that I have no idea how to deal with. I'll just see if it comes back.
Okay.
You want to take a look, Marlene? I'm just trying to get rid of these. And this one came up. Let me do this. And this popped out. Good.
You just lost the webcast.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there
we are. Okay, sorry about that. Sometimes things come up on this machine that Ron doesn't seem to know what to do with, and it just popped us out of the webcast. So what we're dealing with is numbing the space, the quiet that we have inside of us that is difficult to deal with. In ancient traditions, many, there was a great search for total silence to occur, within and without, so that you could perceive the glow of consciousness that was pursued by many, so that you could be involved with that wondrous sense of internal flow that would interfere with you being a normal human being on our planet now or then. Just total silence, complete and total glowing consciousness. No thought, no emotion, no engagement with the body. As a matter of fact, it was almost as if you were outside the body and not actually functional as a human being. And that would mean that you had reached some very high state. In the West, we don't consider that too high. We would probably call 911, see if we could get you a little bit of help, and get you back into the world of engaging out of this catatonic state, one could say. In fact, in the old system, you weren't really catatonic. You were in a kind of trance related to higher states. In other words, trance meant not engaging the way normal people do. And you could stay in that state and walk around and blah, 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 blah. But for some, they found a balance between living this world and the silence going on at the same time. And that was one aspect of living in a higher state. If we approach a quietness, we do all kinds of tricks. Any of them are related all to the physical form. Those things that make you feel good. Half the time we're looking to just numb down things that are just uncomfortable for us. So we do something else, whatever that may be. And there are many, all kinds of things. You can become a collector. You could make a living collecting paintings if you knew what a good painting was, and sell them, and that becomes your job then. Many of our jobs are there because we need them to make a living so we can survive. But also, they become the stellar place, the place where you go, where you can be and engage in a way that helps you not to be frustrated or to feel pain. You're just too busy doing all kinds of other things. And this is, most of the time, we can also choose things. We can choose aggression, because that's stimulating. Anything that stimulates the endocrine gland system. We can use anything that's toxic, drugs of all kinds. We can, alcohol, anything. Or we can use being contrary. So everything comes up is always wrong. You have to wait for a few seconds to find out the right answer, but nonetheless, the right answer is only the right answer as long as it's the right answer. Because when you're contrary, you can find another answer in 30 seconds if you're really good at it. You can hide from emotional pain through anger. And that's kind of crazy, because you're thinking, well, I'm angry, I'm not hiding. Yes, you are. You're hiding from the thing that really hurts. Anger is just a method of softening down the hurt. The hurt can be real because it's an absence of loving. All kinds of habits, whatever they may be, but we won't think of them as being constructive. But many, many habits are constructive. So if you're going to choose a habit, choose a constructive one. the best you can and be helpful to yourself. If you do that, then it's helpful to you, and it's a viable way to look at life. How can I be helpful? How can I truly be helpful? This is really hard for us, even though it sounds like as if it should not be hard for us. For example, I'll give you one example. If you can meditate daily for at least an hour, this is not a rule, that would be helpful. If you can't, do it for a half an hour. If you can't, do it for 15 minutes. Oh, I can handle that. It's only 15 minutes. Okay, well then do it for 15 minutes, but do it every day. It'll be helpful. Yeah, but Ron, I heard it was 2 hours you had to meditate, or 3. Well, try it, see if it works for you. It may be helpful. You may get hooked on it. It may not be so helpful to you. You might construct a world of, if I did it for X number of hours, then I would be more superior to anybody else. Not helpful. You wouldn't be. It would still be you. But remember, when you meditate, you're trying to blend different states together in a conscious manner. To be aware, that means of you as you are, as well as beyond that. Any current awareness of where you are. You are more. You are very able beings. And you have your ups and downs and sidewayses, just like us. But you are in a process of learning. Do the best you can with it. And be respectful and kind, and attempt to be the same with others. The best you can. You will not succeed all the time. It's not required. It is required to attempt and to understand and learn from how you engage the best you can. And I mean the best you can. Never mind anybody else. Do what you can. Please take care of yourself. We're going to meditate now for a little while. And we'll try and do it for roughly 50 minutes anyway. Minimum. Good night, everybody. I will close off at the end. Okay? Take care. And now we'll just begin to do the balancing and grounding. I wish you all well. Please take care of yourselves.